This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
Take us to kickoff.
Welcome into the student section for Monday, September 24th, alongside Kelly in Vegas and the big man on campus. I am Drew Martin. We're going to be hitting on 5 games for college football this upcoming weekend, including Thursday and Friday's slate. Plus, get Kelly and Big Man's thoughts, as long as myself, on this past weekend and some bets that they like off of those 5 games. But without further ado, Kelly in Vegas. Follow her on Twitter at Kelly in Vegas. How's it going?
Life's really good. Not so good in college. Much better in NFL. But it's just the way it works sometimes, right, Drew?
Yeah, stick to what's winning, Kelly. If NFL's not broken, keep going with it. But hopefully you can change it around this week in college football.
That's the plan, man. I saw a tweet earlier. I was talking about home dogs, and I said, yeah, but the road dogs have to be doing better. I'm just keep picking the wrong ones. And he's like, actually, the dogs just aren't barking right now in college football as much as you think they are. So hopefully we get some barking dogs this weekend.
Yeah, let's look for some dogs. And big man on campus, follow him on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau. Welcome into the show, bud.
Hey, Drew. Always good to talk to you and Kelly here on a Monday, recapping the weekend and going towards next. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we got Thursday and Friday's slate, and guys coming in the chat box, feel free to chime in on what games you want to hear. We'll get to those in about 15 minutes or so. We want to go through the Thursday and Friday slate right now and touch on 2 Saturday games. An ACC battle Thursday night in South Florida. We got UNC traveling down to Miami Gardens to play the Miami Hurricanes. Looks like a big number here, -18. Miami's laying at home, right around that number. Kelly, do you want to start us off with UNC Miami? Your opening thoughts on it?
I knew a lot of sharp guys really liked this North Carolina team last week, and I couldn't pull the trigger, catching a little bit over a field goal at home. Obviously, they get the win over Pittsburgh. I think that they're a little bit better of a team than we thought they were to go into week number 3. This team I kind of was pretty low on. And on the opposite side, Miami, I was really low on Miami to start the year. LSU was my big play to start right out of the gate. And, Miami then proved me wrong, beat me up a little bit against a bad Toledo Maction team, and I probably should have went back with them this weekend. Last week with Florida International, kind of wondered if they were going to have a look-ahead spot going into this North Carolina game. Why ACC, whether it's North Carolina or whoever, they're going to be looking ahead to conference play. I don't have a big opinion on this one. I think Miami's probably going to throttle this team. But for the most part, looking at power ratings, North Carolina's played some tougher power rated teams, but not really anything that significant. Miami, on the other hand, has played teams like Savannah State, Toledo, and Florida International. I get it, LSU to start the season, but that's really their only tough scheduled team there. Like I said, if I had to pick this one, I'd lean towards the Hurricanes initially.
Okay, and yeah, nice play there on that opening game. The whole world seemed to be on Miami, and you chose LSU. I remember that one. And big man, we got a total here with Bet Online coming out with their numbers. And guys, a good way to look at totals is Bet Online usually comes out first, lower maximum bets, but you can always check out their numbers on SBR odds as well as they're coming out. But big man, looks like 57's the total, 18.5 now. Miami pretty much laying across the board.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot because I think Miami does have a bit of a quarterback conundrum. I would imagine N'Kosi Perry will get the start. I mean, I think we've seen enough from Malik Rozier at this point. N'Kosi was very good last week. I think he's the quarterback, but I think there's still a conundrum on who you're going to go with. You also look at the fact that UNC gets back a lot of players this week. Those players that were suspended for selling custom Jordans are now back. I mean, you're going to have plenty of guys back, plenty of wholesale changes on offense and defense. Most of those players did fit into this team, so you're going to get a lot of talent back onto that football team. Listen, Miami's a good team. I like them, but I'm not in love with them. I think they're a team that I'm not running to the window to bet on, even at home. They did struggle last week against Florida International. I think you put Florida International, North Carolina on a field together. I don't think it'd be any question. I know North Carolina is not a good team. I don't think they're going to win this game. They're going to probably start out 0-6, but this is a lot of points to be giving them. I think with some of the changes, they're going to get back on offense and on defense. I like the way Nathan Elliott played last week against a pretty good Pittsburgh team. I'm willing to think this might be too many points, but it's a standalone game on a Thursday. It's not exactly, these are not the kind of games I like to get involved with. I prefer to be involved with games on a big card where I can kind of hide and look for games that no one else is on. So this probably won't be a game I'm betting on, but I'm looking towards maybe the dog getting back all sorts of players.
Drew, to piggyback off what Big Man said.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go
to
for it,
piggyback off what Big Man said. North Carolina is 4-1 in their last 5 games when playing Miami, and especially the way that maybe the public is really down on this North Carolina team might be a spot to back them here.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, Big Man, do you think the spot wise it's good to back them?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, they obviously have had some tougher games. I mean, you look at all their schedule in general. I mean, you went out to Cal, you kind of hung in that game with limited players. At East Carolina, I know people will say that's not a big win, but or that's not a big game or anything for North Carolina. But and they didn't play well in that game. But East Carolina is better than people think. Pittsburgh obviously is a solid team. You went out and beat them. This isn't necessarily any kind of look ahead. You don't have a big game against Duke or anything on the block going forward. And look, UNC can't really look ahead at anything. This is a big game against an opponent that they probably know that they're going to play well against. And they're going to get up for that game. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good spot for UNC. I'd be looking towards getting them. You're getting back a lot of players that weren't just bench players. These are depth. These were players that started. It could be a nice shot in the arm for the Tar Heels.
This is a tricky handicap on both sides of the ball because I'm with you. Like, as I know, both of you know, finding change is a great way to win in this business. And with the added, I guess you could say, depth and really skilled position talent that UNC is getting back. And also on the other side, I mean, I just read in the Sun Sentinel down here in South Florida, but, Perry is looking to probably start. His first 2 drives in against FIU, he let him down for touchdowns. He looked like the better quarterback. He's definitely the more accurate quarterback, more heralded
Yeah, but
quarterback. So you're going to have change there too.
here's the thing that I do kind of have a concern about. I mean, look, I like FIU. They're a solid team. Butch Davis has done nice things with that program, but UNC is obviously much better athletes. They're a better team, kind of as far as athletically. I wonder, I mean, how good, Perry's, a young kid. I think he'll try to maybe with the confidence that he's got, maybe try to fit balls into places that maybe you shouldn't as far as throwing, in traffic and stuff. I think there's a conundrum there. I think there's definitely a decision to be made. I don't think they're as strong offensively as they were maybe even last year, and they weren't even that strong last year. It just seems like a bit too many points to me.
All right, guys. Well, we should move down the line here. Friday slate. We got 105, 106 Memphis, Tulane. Looks like Memphis laying 14 now. This one's been bought up a ways, and 2 differing styles of offense here. The total's a tricky one as well. 2 teams trying to do different things in terms of pace. A lot of good things can be said about Tulane. A lot of good things can be said about Memphis. Big Man, you want to start us off with this AAC clash?
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting one. Memphis, though, going on the road here, they had no problem handling Tulane last year, and I thought this Tulane team was pretty good. But Drew, you and I have talked about it. I'm not necessarily in the market to lay 25 plus points with Memphis, but I think this is a lot better of a number for them. Their offense is rolling right now. I don't think where they struggle is in pass defense. I don't know if Tulane's going to be able to really exploit that. Actually, I know they're not going to be able to exploit that. Um, Memphis, though, a team I'm never really looking to kind of lay double digits with. It's just the truth of the matter. I hate to not give a great breakdown on this one, but I'm just not really into it. I mean, they could very well roll, and their offenses look really good. This might just be one of those cases of I don't think Tulane could keep up with Memphis. But Memphis has a weird way of kind of struggling in games like this. I mean, you always look against Navy; they always seem to struggle. I know this isn't exactly that Tulane offense, but it's a similar kind of offense, and it could bother Memphis. Tulane can hold on to the ball for a while. The best way to keep a good quarterback off the field. Look at what the Detroit Lions did last night. That's a prime example. Keeping those players off the field. Tulane can eat up a lot of drives. You look at against Navy. That's what they did against Memphis, and they were able to get the job done and hold them to 21 points. The key to keeping an offense out of scoring is keep them off the field. Tulane can do that. I feel like if you're getting over 2 touchdowns here, might be a sneaky play on the home dog.
Yeah, I could see
Yeah,
that
I gotta
being
agree
an
with Big
angle.
Man.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Sorry, Drew. I was going to say I have to agree with Big Man. Catching over 2 touchdowns with the home dog might be the right play here, but I do think that people are going to look at kind of what did we see last year from this Tulane team. I don't know what I was thinking, but I took the 37.5 with Tulane, thinking that Ohio State would be looking ahead to Penn State. And I went back for a little bit more on halftime. Luckily, the halftime bet kind of saved me there. But before we started, I was talking with Ralph Michaels, who Drew and I do some work with, kind of on another level. But he and I were talking about this Memphis squad. 257 is their power rated offense. These guys are so good offense. That is the only thing that really kind of scares me there, that his number one power rated offense in terms of yards per play, and all the other things that kind of go into that. And this team looks really, really, like you said, we see this magical, 13.5, where they probably should be right around that range. But I think we're going to see a lot of people run to the window and bet Memphis here.
Yeah, I could see Memphis definitely being the side because it's a Friday night game. Memphis has done well on these kind of exposed game, like nationally televised games in the past. They did cover against Georgia State. I took the loss on that. I'll tell you, this is also a tricky handicap, Big Man, with the total. You brought up Tulane kind of holding on the ball, limited possessions, but at the same time, when they can score, they're going to put on the gas pedal and they're going to put up some points. So if you had to make a bet on this total, seeing 67, would you lean over or under?
It's a real tough one, Drew, because for me, when I highlight college basketball, which is my favorite sport to bet on, I look at Clash of Styles games, and I generally avoid those games because you're really coin flipping on who's going to be able to run their style. Look, probably it's Memphis, but I'm not really believing in betting against it. Brady White, I'm not in love with. And that's really going to depend on if I like the game over or under too. It wouldn't surprise me if this game's muddied up and this is played in the 20s because, Tulane will sit on the football. They will try to just sell out, and kind of stop it and get the ball back and sit on it for 8 or 9 minutes. It's so tough. I hate to not give an opinion. I would guess that Tulane can hang in this game. And if I like Tulane, I'm looking under. If I like Memphis, I'm probably looking over. If Memphis gets going, like Kelly said, there's no stopping this team. But I have a concern here, Drew. I'm seeing in their injury report, there are 2 injuries. They're not injuries. You have 1 tight end suspended, and Sam Croft, one of their better receivers, an undisclosed injury. I don't know. Generally, that always means it's something along the lines of disciplinary. So I don't know, maybe he had a little issue after the game the other night. I don't know what happened, but maybe keep in mind with that because Sam Kraft is one of their better receivers for Memphis. So I don't know. I'm looking towards taking the points here. I think Tulane just kind of slows it down. By the way, I give Kelly my condolences. There were some bad beats this weekend. That was a bad one in that Ohio State game. I mean, Urban Meyer.
And to be honest with you, that's what scares me again this weekend, because which 2 offenses are really similar? Memphis and Ohio State are both in the top 5 offensively. Like, if Tulane couldn't stop Ohio State, I don't know if they can stop Memphis. And that is really scary to me. This is the number 1 yards per play team. And if they get it going, how much does this Tulane defense have left in the tank? Short week. They just got throttled by Ohio State, and it makes me a little nervous. Yeah, sure, they're going to get up for their home team, but they get down 14 early. It might be a bloodbath.
Well, here's the thing, though, just to point out, and I think this is important to mention. You look at Memphis; they put up 750 yards against Mercer. So, I mean, that's a large swath of those yards to a Division One FCS team. You also put up 410 against Georgia State. Not exactly difficult. This is definitely a better opponent, but I mean, you're obviously getting only 14 here when you were getting 37 over the weekend. I thought Tulane was probably the side in that game, but I thought Ohio State did call off the dogs. You were just kind of unlucky in that game late, but it's a tough one, Drew. Clash of Styles games are tough. These are ones you.
Well, and that's one thing we talk about a lot is these top 5 teams don't want to call off the dogs. Why? Because they need to absolutely make a statement so that they could be up there with the Alabamas of the world, because Alabama's not even trying to make a statement, and they're making a statement. So the Ohio States of the world, Clemson's of the world have to do these things.
And I want to make this clear, Drew, and I'm sure you remember this game. I'm sure you both remember it. The worst beat I've ever taken in a sports betting game was the Bahamas Bowl in 2014, West Kentucky,
Oh yeah.
Central Michigan. I always remember where I was in that game. But I got to tell you, Friday night with Illinois might have been close. Illinois for me on Friday night was I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. I sat there in disbelief. Usually, the cops are called on me. They're knocking on my door, yelling at me, "What's going on in this house?" We're hearing screams. But listen, that was ugly on Friday night. It really was ugly. It hit me like a bag of bricks, Drew. When you get hit by a bag of bricks, sometimes you just get hit, you fall down, you wake up later. But this one was one of those slow, just I'm going to take your money slowly, and I'm going to just keep taking that knife and putting it farther into your neck and just twisting it. That was ugly.
Ah, big man. Good story, buddy. It's a tough transition. We'll stay in Friday night though. UCLA, Colorado. Looks like the Buffs laying 10 at home, 62 the total. UCLA, one of I believe 4 teams still winless in all of FBS. Kelly, do you think they got a shot to stay within 10 on Friday night?
Oh man, I understand probably what UCLA fans are going through right now. They're going through a really tough transition. This UCLA team, not only did they lose Josh Rosen, who obviously is not quite the NFL quarterback we think he might be just yet. But that being said, then they transitioned to Chip Kelly. Chip's trying to run this offense that none of these kids have ever seen. And this is just going to be one of those really brutal rebuilding years, so to speak, maybe even rebuilding couple of years. It's really hard to back this team here. I was on Fresno State last week catching a couple, or I think actually I was laying a couple points with them. UCLA was catching a couple points, and I've said this one had trap written all over it. It is tough. Their only cover was laying or catching 30 at Oklahoma, where, we just talked about Oklahoma probably called up the dogs a little bit. There was a couple of weird things in that one to get the cover. But this Colorado team, they did beat Nebraska. I was kind of impressed with that win. I thought Nebraska was the right side there. I don't really know what to make of them. Both teams obviously going to be well rested here. I kind of go back and forth. I'll be really honest with you. I could make a case for the dog. I think the line, of course, is a little low. I thought it should be 11 and a half, maybe a little higher. So to see a 10, I was like, okay, maybe I need to be looking towards the Bruins. Usually whenever a line's very fishy, it kind of makes me double check it. You know what I mean? But UCLA is just not good right now. They're not even covering games. They're not winning games. They're not doing anything that makes me think they've deserved my money. Colorado, pretty much the same thing. 5-13 against the spread in their last 18 games. 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 games. I bet them a few times last year, and every single time I regretted it. This might be a game I just need to stay away from.
Yeah, big man. I mean, Kelly brings up, UCLA struggling, and they are. I don't think Colorado's that good either. I mean, that game against Nebraska, seeing what Nebraska's been able to do since then, I don't think the Buffs are very good either. So I could see, this 10, trusting a team like that to cover it is always tough. You got any feeling on UCLA, Colorado?
Yeah, I'm kind of on other wavelengths with Colorado. I think it's important to mention that in that Nebraska game, Adrian Martinez played virtually the entire
Mhm.
game, and that's why it was closer than people think. Look, I think Colorado's pretty impressive. I thought this kid Lavisca Chenalte he looks like a real good football player. The running back, Steven Montez has started to kind of turn it around. I've never been a big fan of his. I haven't been a big fan of this quarterback rotation in general. They had a kid named Sifo Lufau, and then they had Montez, and I haven't been a fan of either. But I thought Montez looked great in that Nebraska game. They followed it up and beat New Hampshire, which is no great shakes. But I believe both are off buys, if I'm correct. I might be
Yeah,
wrong,
they're
but
both up.
yeah, I
That's why
think they are.
sorry, that's what I
Yeah.
said when I said well rested.
Sure, and that's a great point because but you look at UCLA and you wonder. I mean, is this team focused? I mean, you have 0-3. Chip Kelly's seemingly lost. You have the talented freshman quarterback's father coming out about his displeasure. I mean, what is going on in UCLA with these outspoken fathers? This school is the antithesis of upset fathers. You have LeVar Ball, you have this guy. I mean, they need to get their fathers, under control over there. But yeah, I don't like UCLA. I don't think they're any good. I don't understand why you went with Wilton Spate to begin with. Now you have the talented freshman who he's had some problems. I just think they're a complete mess right now. I don't think they're very good, frankly. You got whitewashed by Fresno State. That shouldn't be a team you lose by, 20 points to ever, 24 points or whatever it was. I think they're just a bad team. Colorado at home here. I would slightly lean this way, but you're right, guys. I mean, Colorado is not a world beater. The good thing is they played a game. They've had a week off since that big win against Nebraska. I don't think they'll be looking ahead or anything. It might be a little bit of time to kind of get some revenge on that glitzy, glammy UCLA squad that seemingly is always better than they are. Colorado might just be hit them in the mouth and kind of keep going with it.
Guys, let's move on to an ACC clash where revenge will be on the mind with Syracuse at Clemson. This is a 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific kick. Looks like Clemson 22, so 3 touchdowns laying at home, 63.5 the total. I think this number looks short. I could see Clemson making 22 look real small. I like the Clemson Tigers here. Kelly, do you agree?
I absolutely agree with you. I think this number is too short. And I ended up firing on Clemson minus 15.5 last week. Is the first time I played them this season. Thank God. And they got the cover. Usually I don't like to lay bigger numbers. This was one of those spots where I said, you know what? Clemson, what we just kind of talked about with Ohio State, is going to have to pour the points on. I really like defensive coordinator Brent Venables. That might be the K-State girl in me, but I think he's probably arguably the best defensive coordinator. And we had known that they had seen this triple option the week before with Georgia Southern. When they played Georgia Tech, it was absolutely apparent that they knew what was going to happen next. And here's a Syracuse team that looks good. They're 3-1 against the spread. Like you said, there's a little bit of revenge factor here, something to consider. Syracuse has been great against the spread, 6-1 in their last 7 games on the road. And I think you're right, though. This line looks short. I think it should be, I think it opened 21.5. I think it should be closer to 24. I think we've seen some early money come in on them. But I wonder here where kind of Clemson's mindset's going to be. They have a pretty easy ACC schedule. They play Syracuse and they play Wake. Then they get to play NC State before they play Florida State. So I don't think there's going to be any look ahead, so to speak. But this might be a Syracuse team's, we'll call it their Super Bowl. Right? This what we saw last year. They ended up winning this game, and we might see them get up and not get embarrassed. But the idea here would be that Clemson has to put on the points to show any sort of voting committee that they deserve to be, the 1A to Alabama, which a lot of people will say they don't because of how they kind of struggled at Kyle Field a couple of weeks ago. I will say I talked to a couple of the guys earlier with Trevor Lawrence versus Kelly Bryant. I asked, I said, hey, they're about comparable. And he goes, no. He goes, you didn't watch enough of that Georgia Tech game. I said, you're right. He goes, Trevor Lawrence is the better quarterback here. He is worth a few more points than probably people realize. So something to take into consideration when you're handicapping this game.
And I believe he has been named the starter for Saturday. But big man, do you have any opinion? Syracuse, Clemson?
Yeah, I'm looking over the number here. I think Clemson has no problem putting points up on a terrible defense. This defense stinks. I mean, they're going to get shredded in this game. You have the added incentive that Lawrence is playing, who I think he should have started from the beginning. I thought 20-1 on him to win the Heisman wasn't a bad pick. I mean, especially if he was in there. This guy could take them all the way to the end, and they're obviously going to be a good team, so will be relevant. But here's my problem with Clemson. Okay, I don't think they're very good in their pass defense, and I think that's been evident. You look at the one team that could move the football through the air, they got absolutely shredded in the passing game. Kelly, I love you. I love Drew. I love both you guys. But I got to tell you, I can't agree with you that Brent Venables. I mean, listen, Brent Venables gets the best players in the country every year. To me, we have to stop with these narratives that these guys that get this top tier talent are great defensive coordinators. Put these guys on bad teams and see how they do. And that's a conversation for another day. I don't want to take up time by my issue on calling good coaches when they get the best players. Mike Krzyzewski's not the best coach in the country. He gets the best players every year, and he just happens to be there. He's a babysitter at the end of the day. We need to start giving respect to the real coaches, in my opinion. But that's another discussion. I look at these groups, there's 4 teams that Clemson's faced. None of them, other than Texas A&M, can throw the football. They faced a lot of teams that could run the ball, which is fine. They did a nice job. But I think they struggle against high tempo, up tempo teams. Kelly made a great point on this is a Super Bowl type game for Syracuse. We look at what it was last year. They were able to hang around and obviously win that game. They've given up a lot of points this year so far. You look at what Western Michigan did to them. You look at what even Connecticut did to them. Connecticut put up 21 on Syracuse. I look at this game. I think it's like a 48 21, 51-21, 51-17, something like that. I think you guys are probably on the right wavelength with Clemson, and I wouldn't disagree with you there. But I don't think Syracuse is just going to go away and say, "Oh, we're okay with getting shut out." I don't think Clemson's pass defense is good enough to do that.
I gotta agree with you, big man. I think this is probably more of an overtype game. I mean, both teams running quite a few plays. Clemson's running 68 plays a game, but here is a Syracuse team that's almost running 84 plays per game. And yes, of course, I'm going to give a little more credit to Clemson's defense than you will. But that being said, at a point in time, when you spend that much time on the field, 83, 84 plays a game is going to wear down
Sure.
any really good defense or mediocre defense, in your opinion. So looking towards the over here might be the right spot.
And Kelly, I mean, look at how much, seemingly possibly over as far as garbage time we'll have in this game. This game might be out of hand, and you have players that, and I do not want to take anything away. Clemson's front line might be the best I've ever seen, but that doesn't mean that they're going to get stopped through the air. Texas A&M threw the ball all over them. I'd imagine Eric Dungy is going to look to do the same here. I love Clemson. I think they're a terrific team. But I don't trust this pass defense. I think they're going to give up some points late. That could be where this total's won. It's not exactly high either. 63 is not bad. We know Clemson's going to put up 45, 50. And if we can get 17 or 20 from Syracuse, this game should go over the number easily.
But you're right. Even if you get that garbage TD, then that blows your cover if you're laying kind of a bad number. So make sure if you guys bet Clemson, you better do it early because I have a feeling this one might hit 24 by kickoff.
Yeah, and Kelly, you brought up the opening line of it being bought up. I'm actually seeing an 18.5 at SBR odds where it opens. So that and opening lines are, it's tough to say a consensus because I believe this is going off a bet online. So who knows? Maybe one guy in the universe got that 18.5. But so it's something to think about. You bring up the bad number. Yeah, it's been bought up, almost 4 points from that original number. Something to definitely think about. 63.5 of seeing as a total. Got people asking about that in the chat box. Also, Sam's picks asking Kelly for her K-State opinion, which we will get to after one more game. 153, 154 BYU Washington. This is a later game on the West Coast here. It looks like Washington laying 17. Going from a game we all like the over to a game that's totaled at 44. College football totaled at 44. What's going on here? Big man, you want to start us off BYU Washington?
Yeah, I think if we look at disappointments, I mean, I know Washington's obviously played well this year, and their only loss is to Auburn in a close game. But look, I haven't really been blown away by this group. I haven't been that impressed. I thought Arizona State would struggle against Washington just because, I look at what Washington could do defensively, and I think with Arizona State, I thought they'd give them a lot of problems. They didn't. I mean, it really was a close game. Arizona State played pretty well, even with not very many yards. This BYU team's pretty good. They have a good defense. They have a solid run game, and I think that's where BYU is going to want to establish that. This is a lot of points to lay where BYU is going to look to just sit on the ball, run the football. The one thing I do worry about, though, is Mangum. Their passing game has been poor. They need to get better moving the football through the air. They've had a lot of drop passes, which they need to correct a little bit. But I'm looking at principle in this game. I think BYU's a lot better football team than they were last year. I think they're looking at this game and really circling it. I think this is probably the biggest game of the year for this group. They're 3-1. They had a nice start to the season. They've already beaten Wisconsin, as we know, on the road. I think this is a dangerous number to give a team that will just sit on the ball, run the ball, play good defense. That's what Sataki's teams generally do. I haven't been overly impressed with Washington. You look at recently, I mean, they beat Utah, but it was only by 14. They didn't do anything amazing in that game. Struggled against Arizona State at home as well. I'm willing to think if you can get 17, that looks like a pretty solid number here. I'm looking towards the underdog.
That Utah game was a lot closer than the score leads on as well. Kelly, anything on BYU Washington?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was on Utah on that one, and watching the game, thought for a better part of it, I was still in it. I think I don't remember, maybe 4.5 or something in that one because I bet it a little too late. This BYU team is better, I think, than we originally thought, but I also think this Washington team is still really good. I will say this, when everybody picks you to win the Pac-12 and thinks you're going to upset Auburn right out of the gate, yeah, the level of play and the standard set for you is a little bit higher. And a lot of what people don't realize is these lines are built off public perception as well. Last week we talked about it. I thought that this Arizona State team was a little overhyped. I ended up on San Diego State, and I said, coming back this week, I think that they are the right side here. It's just too many points. And sure enough, they were able to get the cover. I think Washington's going to play a little bit tougher this week. I think the line is right on the money. But guess what? Washington isn't covering games. 1-3 against the spread this year. If you don't want to cover games, it's apparent. And it seems like this team either isn't able to pull away. I'm not sure what their struggling woes are, but they definitely don't have that great team mentality. Trying to find something positive to say one side or another. I think they're averaging. Their offense is better than I think probably we've seen in the past. But Jake Browning's got to step up here and play a great game against an okay BYU team. I agree with Big Man. I like Sataki. I think he's a really good coach, and I think the BYU is an improved team over what we've seen in the past couple of years. But I still think that win over Wisconsin was a little fluky. That's why I ended up on Wisconsin last week. I think there was a definite overreaction to that one.
And Drew, I think another thing you got to look at here with BYU. I mean, their goal is to keep the football on the ground. And look, I mean, Washington has struggled a bit with that. I mean, they're giving up over 4 yards a carry. BYU is just going to say, listen, we're going to put the ball on the ground. We're going to just try to get 5 or 6 yards of carry. You try to move the sticks that way, the occasional throw. They have a decent quarterback. That's going to eat up a lot of time in this game. And like Kelly said, I think she said it perfectly. This Washington team doesn't cover games. I mean, I remember last year, they're laying a lot of points. They're barely winning. They have a kicker that seems to leave points in the field all the time. All you need is one or two things to go wrong in a number like this. Washington's not a team that generally runs the score up. I mean, they did it against North Dakota, but I mean, who cares? I mean, the other two games were close games, and like you said, Drew, were a lot closer than people think. I think this is a big time game for BYU. And one of the chat guys makes a good point. I mean, when you're dealing with BYU, you are playing, I think, about as close to a military school as you can get. These are older kids. These are kids that are pretty, for the most part, pretty disciplined. You are getting that similar military atmosphere, I feel like, for a lot of these kids. I like BYU. I think they can hang around here. I think this is a tough game for Washington.
Something else to consider, Big Man. I'm looking here at some of my notes there. +5 turnovers on the season. So if you can win the turnover battle, it's definitely going to help you in covering games. Jake Browning isn't perfect. He is okay, but he isn't perfect when it comes to that. And so if they can capitalize here off a nice big turnover, that may be the difference whether they can cover this game or not.
And that's another, what a great point. Another great point by Kelly. Kelly ate her Wheaties this morning, as always. Terrific stuff, Kelly. Always good. She's right. I mean, Washington has had the problem turning the football over, and 8 turnovers in the last 3 games for Brigham Young. They are opportunistic, and that's the way you hang around in games. She's totally right. I think we pegged this one pretty good, Drew.
Yeah, I like it too. Everything you guys said, it makes. I was looking towards BYU plus the points. I think I'm going to get there. Kelly, we got to give some love to the chat box. We got Sam's picks chiming in. Your opinion: Texas, K-State, Texas laying 8.5. Can K-State bounce back in your opinion?
I was having such a good Sunday yesterday, and a guy called me and said, "Kelly, what do you think about K-State?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to talk about K-State. I'm having a great day." God, this Kansas State team. Where do I begin? I think we have some definite offensive issues. Skylar Thompson and Alex Delton, both I thought were capable quarterbacks. Skylar won the original nod, then back to Delton, then back to Skylar. This 2 quarterback system is an abomination. I don't know what the hell is going on in Manhattan, Kansas. I was pretty harsh on Dana Dimmel, who's now the head coach of UTEP last season, and he may be owed an apology because let's be honest, Andre Coleman, Colin Klein, the former Heisman candidate quarterback that almost took K-State to a national championship game until they lost as 13-point dogs to Baylor, is now our co-offensive coordinator, and we have some serious issues. I think there's a lot of recruiting issues. There is a lot of just BS in general. K-State is 7-3 against the spread in their last 10 playing Texas. I have a shirt that says #WeOwnTexas, and it applies to college football, college basketball, and college baseball because historically K-State has played so well against this Texas team. Something to think about here regarding the other side. I thought Texas finally had a really good bounce back game against the second half against USC. We talked about kind of this early on in the week, and I thought catching 3 at home was really good with Herman. I'm going to give the coaching edge to Herman here. No disrespect to Bill Snyder. But who is Texas to be laying 9 on the road in Manhattan, Kansas? Hostile environment. I don't care what anybody says. It's not a nighttime game. It is a afternoon game. It's going to be nice and muggy in September in Manhattan, Kansas. I don't know if it's going to rain or not yet. It's one of those places where it might just rain even when there's no rain in the forecast. But something to definitely consider when backing Texas. I tried to say last week West Virginia was too many points, and sure enough, K-State's defense really tried hard, and K-State's offense was so inept. I can't even think of the name who's the backup tight end right now because I didn't watch the game because I knew it was going to be ugly. He dropped 2 touchdown passes in the end zone that I easily could have caught. And yes, I mean that. If Drew, next time you're in town, you want to throw me a couple touchdown passes from about 6 yards out, I promise you I will catch that ball.
All right. We'll try that next time. Big man, we got some people chiming in. Thoughts on Temple point plus the points versus BC?
Yeah, real quick, if I could just comment on that game too. I think Kelly made a point about public perception. That public perception in this game is that Texas is really good and K-State really is really bad, and those might be true, but I think it's a great spot for K-State this week. I don't want to bet Tom Herman as a favorite. I just don't. Texas is under 500 over the last 3 years as a favorite. I'm not running to the window in this kind of spot to bet Texas. They're off a big win. Everyone loves them all of a sudden, but you only bet Texas as a dog. I'm not looking to lay almost double digits with them. I think she makes a good point there. And the perception is that no one wants K-State. They're at home. Should be a nice atmosphere there, barring the bad circumstances. As far as Temple's concerned, they are getting disrespected. But here's the thing: BC's pretty good. They were a little bit outed, though, I thought last week. I thought they were hideous against Purdue. Looked terrible. Couldn't run the ball. A.J. Dillon didn't look like the Heisman guy that I think a lot of people think he is. They've had some great running backs there, and he might be one. But the truth of the matter is this Temple team's playing some good football right now. They have a 2-game win streak. Since they switched to Frank Russo, it's been a different team as far as offensively. I thought BC was a bit overvalued. I think they're overvalued here again. I don't mind laying 5-6 points maybe with them, but 14 seems a little bit out of line. Temple was out of line as far as the number against Maryland. They won that game outright. I don't see any reason they can't stay within 2 touchdowns here. BC's a solid team, but I think if we all have seen you can score on this team, they've given up 30 or more points in 2 straight games. They are a team that will give up some yards. Temple with the quarterback change. Defensively, they've looked a lot better as well. This team's flying around. Michael Dogby's been terrific on that defensive line. Kind of looks like a Hassan Reddick type. Temples look real good. I think they're starting to find their flow here. I agree with the listener. This is probably a little bit too much disrespect.
So Kelly, big man, got to give a hats off to you here with the Washington State USC over on last week's show. Y'all were talking about it, and it was just too low. Right as they were going out, I made the bet online. When we were going live, it won with ease. So for this week, do you guys agree that BYU, I guess, plus the 18 is the bet, or could you come up with something better?
That's a great question. I think that number just to me just was too low last week. I didn't seemingly understand it. But yeah, I think BYU is a good bet. I think, to be honest, and I think if Kelly's kind of seeing it the same way I am, I just feel like this. I mean, these happen a lot more in the NFL. I mean, you look at yesterday in the NFL, there were 2 spots that just didn't make any sense: Houston and the Giants, and New England, Detroit. Both dogs. Why would you back those 2 dogs? They don't make any sense. No one wants them. They're mangy mutts, as we say. But at the end of the day, they both got the chicken last night. Those teams get the job done, and K-State fits that profile this week, Drew. No one wants this group. They're just not wanting to be back. Texas is flying high. They've won 2 in a row against big programs. They're headed on the road, though, and they're a favorite. Those are 2 team things that I just don't want when I'm backing Texas. I hate Kansas State. I think they're a dreadful team. I think Bill Snyder's one of the most overrated coaches in the history of sports. But again, I think this week there might be worth a look.
I can't wait to tweet this out. People can watch this later. Big man, you are going to get so much hell from K-State fans. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Hey, Kelly,
God, I can't back this K-State team. I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe by Saturday I get some guts and I can pull the trigger. if we end up getting double digits. But good God, I made the West Virginia game minus 10.5 last week, and that K-State offense was so dreadful that it was really hard for me to watch. So I just didn't.
Now, Kelly, I won't be the first time a fan base has hated me. A few years ago, I do soccer videos at SBR, and we did World Cup videos, and I made it a point to say that I didn't think Mexico was any good, and I got shit from Mexican fans for months about I'm a fat slob. I don't know what I'm talking about. Go do this, go do that. You're an idiot. You're a
Oh,
moron, all this stuff. So it won't be the first time a fan base has hated me. But hey, I call it like I see it. Just saying.
hey Drew, here's a bet I have circled. I don't have a total yet. Maybe you can look on Bet Online for me because I don't have an account with them. 183, 184, Texas Tech, West Virginia. That is one that I definitely have the over circled. That Texas Tech over was probably that, and Texas Tech catching double digits at Oklahoma State was probably the easiest bet I've won in a year and a half.
Kelly, it's a great game to play. What would you set the over under at?
This is a Texas Tech team who's now scored almost 200 points in their last 3 games. I'm
Right.
looking at it probably in the mid 60s to open. I think that this West Virginia defense is okay. I don't think that they're amazing by any means. And Texas Tech doesn't really know what defense is except for when they capitalize off bad turnovers.
Yeah, the odds makers are even going higher. The
Yeah, I
opening
would
number
say
right now is
77.
77.
Yeah, that's what I would have said. It
Open
was
at
78.5.
77.
It was
Oh, I don't know what.
78.5.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Great. Maybe I don't want any part of this. I think this is going to be one of those games that flies over the total. I think we're going to see a ton of offense. These are two of the best offensive teams in the country. Obviously, West Virginia's is a little skewed just because I think K-State's defense is better than we've given people credit for. I was really happy, at least with that aspect. Last week, they were able to capitalize off an interception and in addition to kind of slow down that West Virginia offense. But Texas Tech isn't slowing anybody down, and neither is West Virginia.
Yeah, no, a lot of points in this game. 77. They're obviously they don't want much over money on this game. Putting the number right there. Big man, did you have something you wanted to throw out?
Yeah, I would say, you look at last year, it was 78.5. I think the only difference is Texas Tech might be a bit better defensively, but here's one thing we've learned about Texas Tech. If they're going to get into a shootout, they'll give up points. Cliff Kingsbury is a moron, so he won't he'll always just run with the other team. He doesn't have any idea how to coach a team, so he'll just put a game plan into place and say, "All right, let's just throw it 80 times." That's what they'll do. This game, it wouldn't surprise me if they both get into the 50s. These games are generally haywire. So the 77 doesn't surprise me a whole lot, but I'm not betting under here.
Good show so
Yeah,
far,
I'm
guys. We
looking
got a
right
couple
now.
minutes left. Yeah. Go ahead,
No,
Kelly.
sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, yeah, Texas Tech, 93 plays per game. You're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head there, Jeff, about him not playing anything other than just bombing the ball downfield.
That's what he does. The only reason he has a job there, actually, you know what? I don't know why he has a job there. He's probably the most unqualified person to coach a team in the country. I think the only reason he's there is because he's like decent looking and he used to play there. He's a complete dope. He has no idea what he's doing. I've made it clear I can't stand him as a coach. I think he's brutal. I don't think he has any idea what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely in the hot seat right now. Things are changing around for him a little bit. If he beats West Virginia, his backers in Lubbock might not hate him quite as much. But the question is who are they going to get that's better? And that is the same question that Manhattan, Kansas has every single year. And that's just the sad reality with some of these smaller college schools where it's not that easy to recruit to Lubbock, Texas. I don't know if either of you have ever been there, but it makes Manhattan, Kansas look like the best place on the planet.
Really? So you've been?
I have. Well,
You've been, Kelly?
they're in the Big 12, so I've been a couple of times. The first time we went, we drove all night. We got out of class Friday afternoon, drove all night for an early morning kickoff. Get there at 10 a.m. I think the kickoff was at 11. Where's a liquor store? We got to hurry up and slam some beers before the game. And everybody's like, they don't sell alcohol in this county. I'm like, excuse me? Like, wait, what do you mean? And so then the next county over was like 30 or 45 minutes. And so basically we just had to make friends with the Red Raiders people and just be like, can we please shotgun some of your beers before this game?
I'll be honest, Drew,
Wow.
and this might be hard to believe, but I actually, when I went to the Final Four this year, we had like an off day, and the people I was with, this kid Blackjack Fletcher, he wanted to go to this random like dance hall in the middle of the hill country out somewhere in Texas, and I was more out of place than you would ever imagine there. But I'm sure in Texas, where Kelly's talking about, I mean, it looks real behind. It looks like they're way behind and everything. Seems like the only thing they have out there is like gas stations and like these huge gas stations, but they only serve like soda and stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that Lubbock's much different than there. It seems like it's God's country there.
God.
That's a nice way to put it. It's God's country.
Yeah. I thought God's country was the South, but they still sell beer at the college towns and everything. I can't believe that,
Yeah,
Kelly. No beer in the
they
whole
do now.
county?
I had somebody
Oh.
tweet me. They were mad. They're like, "No, Lubbock sells booze now," and I'm like, "Oh, it's welcome to 2000." I think it was like 2014. I'm like, "Welcome to 2014. You guys are getting with the program." I mean, I'm from Kansas, where we have pretty strict alcohol regulations, but I was like, "Wait, what's a dry county? Excuse me."
That is wild. Jeez. All right, guys. Well, I'll go on record as betting BYU just from your analysis because I jumped on the Washington State over last week. So try to keep it hopefully 2-0 BYU plus the points. Kelly or Big Man, is there anything else y'all want to throw out before we shut this down?
No, but as always, I know Mondays are hard. We talk about this. We run through some of the early college games. If anybody ever has a question, wants to tweet me, I'm sure Big Man, same thing with you. You guys are always welcome to. Again, it's hard early in the week to give a really great informed opinion. I noticed by Friday I have an insurmountable amount of games and makes my life a little bit easier then.
Well said. Big Man, anything?
Yeah, I mean the one that I'm going to keep my eye on is Penn State, Ohio State. Listen, I don't think and I'm being really honest here. I just don't think Penn State's on the same level as Ohio State. I think Penn State got absolutely shredded by Illinois on the ground. I think Dwayne Haskins. If you take Tua Tagovailoa out of the discussion, I think he's the best quarterback in the country right now. Um, I think Ohio State goes in there and kicks the shit out of Penn State. Penn State, and I would love to see it too because I can't stand that program. I hate everything that they stand for and hate everything about them. So I'd love to see Ohio State go in there. And at 3.5, I think they go in there. I think that line should be 6.5, more line on to me, but that's just me. I like Ohio State. I'm going to be looking towards that one this week.
Drew, not to hijack your show, but Big Man, have you ever been to Happy Valley?
No, I have not. And it's funny, Kelly. When I was a kid, I loved Penn State. Grandfather loved them. I loved them, but I really kind of fell out of love with this program. Over the last 10 years or so, just with all the stuff that's happened, and I think they really showed their colors. But no, I know plenty of people that have been there. It's not far from where I'm at currently. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest stadiums in America. I think it's 110,000 people. It's quite amazing,
I
really.
just what you give them for a home field advantage, because I give them the most, which is a 6. I give Manhattan, Kansas at nighttime a 6. Not during the day. They get about a 4.5. So I was curious if you think that how much that really goes into the built into the 3.5 they're catching.
Yeah, I think look, they have a great crowd, and look, they love football there. I mean, they're obviously gonna be there all day. They're gonna have a white out there, which is always cool. But I'll tell you what, it didn't bother Iowa much last year. I mean, I think Iowa went in there and almost beat them, if I can remember correctly. Um, I definitely think it's one of the better home atmospheres in the country. But here's the thing about Ohio State. I mean, they play in big stadiums everywhere. I guess you'd give it, probably the same as what you said. What you say, 6 points. I would probably agree with that, and that's basically what this number is. I mean, you're giving them 3 points for home field. They're 3.5 point favorites, so you kind of work it that way. But I don't know. That's a great question. It's a great home atmosphere, but this team lost a lot, and I don't know if they're what they were last year. Me.
All right, guys, great stuff. Way to close it out. Follow Kelly on Twitter at Kelly in Vegas, Big Man on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau. And guys, we'll be back on Thursday for another student section as part of the football betting hour, and tomorrow talking NFL. So stay tuned, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.